Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Isaac. We are in our fifth session with Erica's Easy Prep, Test Prep. So welcome back, everyone, and welcome back, Erica. It's good to see you. I believe today we're going to be covering math, some reading, and I believe some essay writing.
A little bonus essay writing, yes.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bonus, just something I threw in, for Halloween. But yes, thank you for the introduction. Nice to see you all as well. Without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. Let me just pull up the things I want to pull up. I have the questions, problems, practice problems we're going to do on my classroom page, I believe. So all you have to do is join the, I clicked off of it, sorry. Join the Google Classroom. The link for it is close to the Zoom link, but I'm going to pull it up again here for those watching so you can see the code and join. So I'll share that for like 10 seconds and then we will get into the practice problems. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. Here's the classroom code. Going to leave that up for just a few seconds and then we're going to start going off into the practice problems. All righty, so we're going to start off by, this is a little information about the grid in answers. The grid in answers are where they don't give you like multiple choice problems or multiple choice options, sorry. And you have to create an answer totally by yourself. Oh, thank you, Malachi. Provided a classroom link. I appreciate that. So these are just some tips on how to answer those, just in case you wanted a little background information. I think they're kind of straightforward or like intuitive, maybe, I guess is a better word, but it's always good to know everything you can before you get started. So here is our first problem. This is part of the problem solving and data analysis that the SAT questions or test you on as part of the math section. So I'm going to give you well, I was going to give you a few seconds to do it, but I think what we'll do is I'll give you a setup to start doing it and then let you work it out yourself. So Elena is conducting a study about the effects of toxins in the water on the hormones of fish. Elena surveys 350 male fish in a river and finds that 150 of the male fish have egg cells growing inside them. According to Elena's survey, what is the ratio of male fish with egg cells to male fish without egg cells in the river? So what we'll do is I'm going to give you a couple minutes to complete this, to do this problem. And but before I give you time to do that, I want to give you the tip to, when you're reading these math word problems, Try not to go off any assumptions you have from just any assumptions you have, like what you think they're saying. Just simply look at exactly what it's saying. So when you write on your scratch piece of paper, it says Elena surveys 350 male fish, and then says she finds 150 of the male fish have egg cells growing inside them. So very simply, when you read these questions, only mark exactly what they tell you. Don't suppose that it's something else going on, or bring any outside information into these problems. I have a chat question. Okay, so that is my tip. So go ahead. I have a couple answers already, but I'll give everyone else a little time to come to a conclusion as far as the answer. So go ahead, work that out, and we will come right back to each other. All right, so as we're doing this problem, I'm gonna scroll down a little bit so that I can type. And please, anyone, if you can't see or hear me, just say so. We'll make some adjustments. So, everyone's giving some answers. I'll do this first one and then we'll start to, I might call on people specifically. All right, so I'm going to just skip to the part that has the numbers in it. So we read the question already. So kind of a lot of information. It's a paragraph full of information. So just to make sure that I stay focused on what I'm trying to get, I'm going to go to the last sentence, which has the question that we're trying to find in it. So I'm going to reread that. It says, according to Elena's survey, what is the ratio of male fish with egg cells to male fish without egg cells in the river? So a ratio can be represented as a fraction. For all blank, there is blank. So what does this mean? So it says we're making a ratio of male fish with egg cells to male fish without egg cells. So the male fish with egg cells, in the passage it says that the male fish with egg cells total 150. Okay, great, we have that. Now we're making a ratio with the male fish with egg cells, which is 150, we have that, to male fish without egg cells. This is a little tricky because it requires a little subtraction. You may be tempted to say that that the male fish without egg cells totals 350 because that's the only other number we have. But that's wrong because the 350, that includes all of the male fish. If you reread the second sentence, it says Elena surveys 350 male fish in a river. Let me read this chat very quickly. Yeah, it's easy to overlook that. That's why when you read the questions, you have to kind of have a laser point focus and only go by exactly what they're telling you. Right. So ML says 350 minus 150, which is what? Exactly. Good job. So 200. So now we can go ahead and make a ratio or a fraction out of this. So we're going back to the question. It says ratio of male fish with egg cells. So male fish with egg cells, we know that's 150 over male fish without egg cells. So after we do our simple subtraction, we know that number is 200. So our ratio or our fraction is, yep, 150 over 200. Now, how do we what does this simplify down to? Yep. Exactly right. So DM says 3 over 4, sorry. So how we get that, sorry, this is not my preferred way of writing fractions, but these are the limitations of a Google Doc. So when we see two numbers in a fraction that end in 0, they both end in 0, we can go ahead and divide those by 10, right? They're going to be divisible by 10 for sure. So we can reduce this right off the bat to yeah, you can also look at it by making it divisible by 50. ML, that was a good, that's a good way to simplify. If you don't realize that these two numbers are divisible by 50, that is like the highest number that they're both divisible by, I believe. You can also simplify them in smaller ways, like dividing by 10, as I'm doing here. So also, once we get to 15 over 20, we know that both of those numbers are divisible by 5 because we have a number ending in 5 and a number ending in 0. So numbers like that are divisible by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. Ooh, okay, there we go. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So the answer is A, 3/4. So this is just a good example of, being careful with the wording of these problems and not assuming that they're asking you one thing, because it's very hard, or not hard, it's very easy to just use the numbers that they have, but sometimes they're a little tricky like that. So we're going to go to the next problem. This time I might call on some of you. I would like someone to read this question for me. I choose, going by initials, I choose MJ. Please read this. Unmute yourself and read the question, please.
The ratio of the amount of vitamin A in cow milk to the amount of vitamin A in goat milk is 3:4. If a liter of cow milk has 1,560 irrational units of vitamin A, how many how many irrational units of vitamin A are there in a liter of goat milk?
Thank you. It's a liter of goat milk. That's a unit of measurement we don't usually use because we still use a very antiquated British system, but you know, I digress from that. Okay, so again, this is another example of a ratio. Remember I told you ratios are fractions, essentially. But just be very careful with the language and make sure you don't make any assumptions and you pay very close attention to the wording. Okay, I'm going to give you guys like a minute or so to come up with the answer, and then we'll come back to review. Okay, this is one of those grid-in responses that I mentioned before. I believe these are supposed to be more at the end of the SAT, but essentially they are questions that don't give you the multiple choice. And what they do instead is require you to come up with your own answer by yourself. Yeah, DM, it's okay. I can still ask you, I mean, what you were doing is usually how we run it, but I want to just switch it up a little bit. Oops, let me just minimize this just a little bit so I have some more writing room. No worries. I might still ask how we're going to, you know, at each point of the problem while we're working it out. So no worries. All right, thank you. I mean, of course, I always appreciate all of the participation and feedback and all that good stuff. Okay, so it's a little squashed, but I needed to make room for myself. Okay, so this is dealing with a ratio, but in math, we kind of call this a proportion because we have one amount that we're given and we know it's proportional to another amount, but we need to figure out one part of that other ratio or fraction. So what we do know is that the ratio of the amount of vitamin A to the amount, in cow milk to the amount of vitamin A in goat milk is 3 to 4. So let's go ahead. All right, 3 to 4. Okay, we have that. Oh, this made it smaller. I don't like that. I don't think that it did that. Okay. 3 over 4. Now, we know that this amount is going to be proportional or equal in terms of how one piece relates to the other piece. What do I mean by that? So If a liter of cow milk has 1,560 international units or IU of vitamin A, how many IU of vitamin A are in a liter of goat milk? So we know that there are this many IUs of vitamin A in cow milk. So what we're going to do is we're going to just mirror what we know is happening on one side to find out the other part of what we're missing on the other side. So 3, so 3 is over 4 on the left side of the proportion because the ratio of vitamin A in cow milk to vitamin A in goat milk is 3 to 4. So if we have 1560 or 1,560 IUs of vitamin A in cow milk, that means that goat milk is going to go on the bottom. I'm going to use G for goat. It's better writing this out if you write it, vertically, but again, we're using Google Docs, so bear with me. So the thing here is, I'm going to rewrite this, 3 over 4. 3 over 4 is equal to 1560 over G. Because the thing is, no matter how, so basically what this proportion is saying, what this setup is saying is that no matter how big these numbers are on the right side of this equal sign, they're going to reduce down to 3 over 4. Because remember, this dividing sign here that comes before the G right here, that's a sign that things are going to get smaller. It's going to get smaller by however much G is. So G has to be a number here such that this whole right side of the equal sign equals 3 over 4. So that's what a proportion is. It's going to be whatever's on the other side of the known number. The known number here is 3/4. Whatever's on the other side of the equal sign, it's going to reduce down to 3/4. So might be kind of daunting at first, but what we can do is, well, I'm going to open it up to you guys. Where do we go from here? We have our proportion set up, but sorry if you hear cars outside. My windows are open. We have the proportion set up, but can anyone share what they think the next step is? How about ML? Referring to your initials. You can also speak if that's easier. Mm-hmm. ML, okay, what do you multiply? Okay, but what do you cross multiply? That sounds good. That sounds good so far. If it's easier for you, you can unmute yourself.
You cross multiply by putting so 3 over 4
Mm-hmm.
equals 115 60 over G, and then you cross multiply
Mm-hmm.
3 times the G. Wait, let me see. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then it's hard to look with the little when they're like that on the screen, but
I'm sorry, say that again.
it's hard to think when it's set up like that on the screen.
Yeah, it is. It's awkward. I apologize. It's better, I think, if you write it down on your paper. You know, like write it more vertically, like how we usually write fractions. I just don't have a solution to the virtual, you know, issue. Usually I teach this in person, of course. Pardon me. So that's a good start, ML, but annotate. Okay. Thank you, DM. I haven't heard of that. I will investigate that. Maybe next time I will have it. Microsoft Paint 3D. I've used a little Paint. Well, I've used Paint 3D like a little bit before, but I haven't done it. Well, let's see. One second. Oof. Okay. um, I tried Microsoft Paint. I'm not too good with drawing it, so. Oh, I see. Okay. I see what you're saying. Oh, nice. Sorry, DV. I didn't realize that, or DM, sorry. I didn't realize that's what you were saying. Okay. Cool. Oof. Still dicey, but we'll try it. Okay. ML. You guys can all see that? Okay. So this is what you were telling me, right? We cross multiply, now we have 3G. So what is the rest of this cross multiplication? You can unmute yourself.
You mean how do you set it up?
Say that. I couldn't quite hear you say that again.
You mean how what do you do after you put the 3G?
Yeah. What else do we have? Let me turn my volume up actually. Sorry. So I'll show you.
It'll be 6,240 when you multiply
But how do we get to 6,240?
multiply the 4 by 60.
Oof. Sorry for my terrible writing skills. This is a little hard. And that equals, oh, that looks bad. Atrocious, but yeah. Children allowed. But yeah,
And then
that will equal, I'm just gonna type it out here.
when you get 6,240,
Mm-hmm.
you would do it will be 3G over 6,240, and then you just divide by 3 because you have to get the G alone.
Mm-hmm.
So you would divide 6,240 by 3. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you do that, you get 2,080.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Thank you for telling me about the annotate, guys. Appreciate that. Yep, that's right. One way, not to spend two.
Excuse me.
Go
I want
ahead.
to say that I did it a different way. Instead
Mhm.
of multiplying everything, I took the 1,560 and
Mhm.
divided it by 3. Then the result, which it was 520, I multiply it by 4.
So you say you divided 1560 by 3. The result was 520, and then you multiply
Multiply.
by 4. Interesting. So let me see. Okay, so you divided that by. So why did you do it that way?
It seemed a little easier because
Mhm.
I just I'm working with the same variables, like I'm
Mhm.
working with the cow milk, and because it's a
Mhm.
variable, I assume that both of them must have like the same amount that they're based on. So I'm then multiplied by 4.
Right. Yeah, that works out. I think it's thank you for sharing that because it's important that let me know if it's too loud outside. I can mute myself. It's important to realize that there are more than one way you can arrive at a lot of these answers. So definitely if you have another way you did something, if you still got to the right answer, then you can share it. I think what's important, BR, is that, sorry, let me just read this chat message very quickly. Oh, how come I can't read it? Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you for telling me. They're very loud to me, so I'm like self-conscious about it. Yeah, and I think it's important to choose a way that is quickest for you. Pardon me. As long as you understand like what's actually going on, you can do things that are quickest for you. So now, before we decide to go to the next one, I want to see if I should, let me spend a few minutes on this one already. 1 second. I'm just seeing which one I'm going to do next. I think this is similar. Okay, yeah. So we're going to, so yeah, the answer is 2080. We're going to go to another, trying to decide if I want to do this one or that one. It's a little tricky. Okay. We are going to do this one. We'll probably move on to the reading section. So for this one, don't put your answers in the question box just yet. Although I usually like you to do that. I might call on someone. So I will give you a couple minutes to read this and come up with an answer, and then we will go over it. Then after this, we will move into reading. Okay. So when I call on you guys, if you don't know the answer, it's fine to say it. BR, what did you get for this? Again, just going by your initials.
I got C, 50%.
How did you come to that answer?
First, the question says, according to the table, what percent of the literary works with 500 or more pages are from the 19th century? So I just right away went to the column that says 500 or more pages. And down, all the way down, it says total. So based on the rows, because now we are looking for the amounts of each time period. So I saw that in the time period of 19th century, it was 6 and a total of 12. So just by logic, if we divide 12 by 6 is 2, meaning that it's 6 is half of 12. So 100 must be the 12. So 50%, it was a logic answer.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And I like how what you did was you read the question and you went straight to what it was asking. You didn't try to interpret this graph first. You weren't trying to, fit everything else, just you were very focused on what it asked you, and you went and found that from the data that is given. So with the there are some, you're going to have to be interpreting a lot of data with the SAT. So it's important to kind of trim the fat, so to speak. By that, I mean, just focus in on what you need from that data. So really all that we needed, let me use my little annotation now that I have it. All that we needed to focus, like BR said, pardon my terrible drawing. I mean, I'm that looks awful, but we're just focusing on that column. And specifically from that column, we're just focusing on, it says, what percent of the literary works with 500 or more pages. So 500 or more pages, like we said, we're focusing on that column. The total works with 500 or more pages is 12. So of that, we're looking at the ones that are from the 19th century. So we scoot over and we see that that number is 6. So after that, we're, finding a percentage of the total, which is 12, out of the ones from 19th century, which is 6. And right there, after you figure out what information you need from the table and what the question is asking, well, in reverse order, what the question is asking, and then go on to figure out what you need from the table, then you see that 12 divided by 6, that's 50% when you look at percentages. Well, is anyone confused about how to get percentages actually? I realized I just skipped a step. Okay, so okay, let me erase this. Sorry about that. Let me get this together really quickly. Sorry, I jumped up a little bit. Let me go back to where we were. My apologies. There we go. So now, if we have, oh my goodness, why is it doing this? Sorry. So, percentages, okay. If you notice, it's asking us, let's just pay attention to the sentence that has the question in it, which is the last sentence. It says, according to the table, what percent of the literary works with 500 or more pages are from the 19th century? So hopefully you realize, and if you don't, it's okay. But what it's asking you to do is to set up a ratio, which is what we've been covering so far today. So it's asking you, of the literary works with 500 or more are from, what amount of them are from the 19th century? So we already extracted the data, the necessary data from the table. We got 12 for the total of books that contain 500 pages or more. Okay. And we have 6 of those are from the 19th century. So out of a total of 12, 6 are from the 19th century. My writing in this is atrocious, but I'll try it. So 6, over 12. So MJ, what is 6 divided by 12? And I'll give you a hint for if you want a shortcut. These are both positive numbers, or even numbers, sorry. Of course they're positive. These are both even numbers. So you know that they're at least divisible by 2 and possibly divisible by a bigger number than 2.
Is it 2?
Yeah, but how would I write it here? Well, what is 2 exactly?
It could divide 6 and 12 would be,
Not
12.
6 into 12. The question reads, divide 12 into 6. What is 6 divided by 12? Oh, that is so crooked. So it's always important to not put what you think it should be, but rather just what it is. Well, let's say that we did 2. You're saying that you can leave your mic unmuted, MJ.
Wait, you want me to unmute my mic or mute it?
Yeah, for like so we can go back and forth here real quick. So you said it's 2, but what is 2? You said 6 into 12 or 12 into 6. What were you saying was 2?
12 into 6.
12 into 6? Well, let's rephrase that. Are you saying that 12 divided by 6 is 2, or 6 divided by 12 is 2?
6 divided by 12 is 2.
So 6 divided by 12 is 2?
Yes.
Not quite. 12 is a bigger number than 6. So it's not going to be a whole number. It's going to be a fraction or a decimal. Well, fractions are decimals are fraction, but in different forms. I think 6 times 2 is 12, right?
Can you say that again?
6 times 2 is 12, right?
Yes.
I think that might have been what you were thinking of. So 6 times 2 equals 12. Oof, Jesus. So that means that 12 divided by 6 equals 2. Oh Lord, that looks so bad. Okay. So we can still work with 6 times 2 or 12 divided by 6 equals 2. But what we're going to do is we're going to keep it in the form that this fraction up here is in, that fraction. So if we were to divide both sides of this, I forgot what this line is called. If we were going to divide this fraction, each number by 6, what would we get? So in the numerator, what would we get if we divided the number in the numerator by 6?
The numerator is 12, right?
Sorry?
The numerator is the 12, right?
The numerator here?
Yes.
Can you see my cursor? I don't know if you can see it.
Okay.
The numerator right here, you mean?
Yes.
No, the denominator is 12. The numerator is 6. The numerator is on top and the denominator
So
is
if we were to divide that, 6 divided by 6 would be 1.
right. So what's in the denominator, which is at the bottom?
Be half of 1.
Well, what's 12 divided by 6?
2.
Yeah. So the answer is 1/2, or 0.5. Let's see if I can do it. 0. Okay, no problem, DM. So 0.50. So with percentages, these children are so loud. Do you understand why we got from 1/5 to 0.50? Just for the sake of time, I'll go ahead and explain it. When you divide, let me see. So the fraction form of 0.50 is 1/2. or 1/2, and the decimal form of 1/2 or 1/2 is 0.50. That's because when you divide 1 by 2, you get 0.5. So they mean the same thing, these two representations. They're representations of the same amount. Now to get a percent, percent means percent is per 100. Cent equals 100. When you're doing like Latin and stuff and science and math, you know, des or deci equals 10. That's how you can have decimal, goes by tens places. So cent equals 100. Mil, MIL is 1,000. So you have the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. Here, when you look at decimal places, the The 5 is in the tens place in the decimal. So when you look at, oh, thanks, that was quick. Welcome back. But thank you for telling me. When you look at this decimal number, which is 0.50 or 0.50, it's out of 100. Oh my God. Let me not do this. Back to the mouse. So it's out of 100. So 50 out of 100 is 50%, because it's 50. It means 50 per 100. That's what it means. Now, if that's confusing, because this is the first time you've heard it or whatever, that's understandable. What you can do to find percentages is you take your decimal number. Our decimal number we have is 0.5, let's say 0.50. And you multiply by 100. And you'll get 50. And that'll be 50%. So that is how you get percentages. So that's what percentages are. It's fine if you don't understand it at this moment. You will definitely come up against them a lot. Even in everyday life, knowing how to do percentages, like say, if you want to get 20% off of a sale item, I'm cheap and I like coupons and sales. So knowing how to work percentages definitely comes into my favor. So now we're going to go on to reading. It's reading. Oops, I'm still in the essay part. Reading. Now, I would recommend, this is a different Google Doc. So I would recommend probably reading it on your own computer, because it's just harder to read it when I share my screen. I will keep the screen up, but it's better for you to read it on your computer. If anyone has any issues with reading this or pulling this up on their computer, please put it in the chat or unmute yourself and say so. Because, yeah, I think it's just a much easier thing to do. So, I'm going to, before we go off and read these by ourselves, I want a little bit of, I want to read the first paragraph together, And then I want you guys to tell me about the tone, the mood, just what you get from the title of the passage to what you get from the title of the passage plus the first paragraph. And then we can go ahead and read it by ourselves and come back and answer a few questions. So, would anyone like to read it? Read the paragraph?
I could read it.
Okay, go ahead, please.
This passage is adapted from a letter written by Thomas Jefferson to James Madison. It was originally written in 1785 when Jefferson was residing in France. 7 o'clock, and retired to my fireside. I have determined to enter into a conversation with you. This Fontainebleau is a village of about 5,000 inhabitants when the court is not here, and 20,000 when they are, occupying a valley through which runs a brook, and on each side of it a ridge of small mountains, most of which are naked rock. The king comes here in the fall always to hunt. His court attend him, as do also the foreign diplomatic corps. But as this is not indispensably required, and my finances do not admit the expense of a continued residence here, I propose to come occasionally to attend the king's leaves, returning again to Paris, distant 40 miles.
Okay, so what are we getting from this first paragraph? Like, this is the introduction to the passage. So a lot of times it's setting up, like, it's there. Let's just always think that whatever you see in these passages, they're there for a reason. So, constantly be questioning, like, okay, what is this here for? What is it doing for me? What is it communicating? So basically, I'll open the floor up to you guys to tell me, like, your general first impressions of what this is going to be about, or what it describes, the tone, the mood, the vibe. What do you guys think? You can also include the part that describes the passage, like the very first part. That's not technically not the first paragraph, but it says the passage is adapted from a letter written by Thomas Jefferson. That part written in 1785, so on and so forth. So that introductory part, what do you guys think of that? I want to hear a little bit from everyone before we move forward. Guys, it's probably easier to unmute yourselves rather than chat text in the chat, but you can if that's better for you.
What's the question again?
The question is, what are your initial thoughts on the title paragraph, which is this, that starts with this passage and ends in was residing in France, plus the first paragraph of the passage. What are your first impressions? Just any feeling or thought that those two things together elicit in you.
Based on what I read, I say that it started very gloomy. Like you can see how it's very descriptive and kind of a depressive mood, because he at the end he details how the town that I live, instead of becoming a town of few people, is now becoming a major city. So it's probably describing to James Madison how hard it was to live his town that he lived a long time, and look for a better life that can suit his financial necessities.
Mm-hmm. So you're mentioning how he's mentioning finances, and that kind of made it kind of gloomy, you said, because it's like he basically is saying he can't afford to live there.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's a good take on it. Okay, I'm going to read DM's chat message. Giving an introduction about the village he has a permanent house in. Also the things he has noticed that goes on. Yeah. So he's talking about this village. And he's starting to talk about what goes on in this village. Okay. What are your other thoughts? ML, what are your thoughts about your first vibes, the introductory mood that this is setting? We're just reading the first paragraph.
I'm not able to get like a mood yet with the first paragraph.
You're not able to get a mood?
Or like a tone. I'm not able to find it yet.
Well, I mean, if you don't feel a tone or a mood or a vibe, then you could define that in a way. You could say that it's neutral.
Yeah, I think it's neutral.
So what do you think that he is saying in this first paragraph?
I think he's just describing the area or like describing the place.
Okay. That's a vibe too, a mood or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be sad or happy or angry. It could also just be neutral. Okay, so MJ, what do you get?
I'm trying to find the one what you guys are reading because I'm not sure where it's at on like what page because I'm reading something else about I don't know what it's even about. So I can't find this on there.
Oh, well, next time if you can't find it, just tell me.
I,
You can
I
interrupt me.
thought it was that, but then I looked on the Zoom and I saw that it was something totally different.
Got it. Okay, let me. Thank you.
Because I'm on the document, but I'm not sure what page it is on here.
So he just shared a link. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that, yeah, I think he had shared it as well before. So let me make sure that, oops. Yeah, that's the right link. So in any case, I will get your feedback, MJ, on the first paragraph when we come back. Now we're gonna go ahead and just read the entire thing. Are you able, MJ, are you able to see it now? There's a link in the chat to it.
Okay, I'm on it now.
Okay, so I'm gonna give us, let's see. I'm gonna give us like 7 minutes to read it and answer as many questions as you can. If you don't finish, it's quite all right. This is very archaic language. It was written in 1785. So I mean, you know. We are not going to answer all the questions just as yet. What we will do is once we come back, we're going to go over questions 1, 2, 4, and 7. If we have time, we're going to go over them in succession. Let me write this down for you. I'll put it at the end of the passage. So 1, 2, 4, and 7. right, so I'm gonna leave my screen up here, but again, definitely better for you to just read it on your end, much easier. Okay. I'm gonna set a timer for 7 minutes. So we should be coming back at like 3:55. All right, so I will see you guys then.
Since you want to act like that.
Unmuted. Could have swore I was muted. Unmuted.
Alrighty, so not quite 3:55, but 3:56. We will run the time over time just a little bit, but we're gonna have a bonus essay writing segment afterwards, so it's all good. Oh, I didn't even mean to go down. Okay, pardon me. So how we're going to answer this is there are 4 of you, and I have 4 questions that we're going to go over at the moment. And to get the answer for the rest of the questions, we can either save them for the next session or you can email me. So I'm going to call on you by initial. Oh, I have something in the chat. Let me see. Oh, sorry. I'm going to call on you all by initial, and we're going to, I would like you to give me your answer for the question I ask you, please. And be prepared to defend your answer. Now, really quickly, before we do that, I'm going to put both of these, the questions and the passage side by side. So give me 1 second while I stop sharing to get that set up on my end. So we have this here. Oh my goodness, a dog. Okay. Mm-mm-mm-mm. One second. Alrighty. I will now share my screen again. All right. So, as always, let me know if you can't see anything. You can feel free to interrupt me if you can't see something, because it's important that you see, of course. Okay. So, as always, there is a question asking about the main idea. Here, in question number 1, they frame it as the central claim. Central means in the center, claim, obviously, that means what someone is claiming, what they mean to, the statement they're making. So that's another way to ask what the main idea is. So for this question, I would like for, let's see, can MJ answer this question, please? You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was reading over the questions.
Sorry?
I was reading over the questions.
I still did not hear what you said. I'm so sorry.
I was reading over the questions.
Oh, you didn't have a chance to get to the questions?
No.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, so ML, do you have the answer for number 1?
I think that answer let me switch to my says that Jefferson's central claim in the passage is that. Are you on that one? I can't really see your screen that well.
Yeah, number 1. It's also on the Google Doc. You just have to scroll down.
Yeah, I'm on my doc.
Yeah,
So I think
question 1 of 11. Yeah.
uh I think I think it could be A because in the passage uh it was hard to really understand
Mm-hmm.
everything what he was talking about because the wording, but
Right.
I know he was talking about wealthy people and stuff. So I don't know what redistributed really means. So I would
Do you know what distribute means?
guess
What does it mean to you?
to like give pass
So, I'm sorry, finish that.
to like pass something, distribute.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, do you know what the prefix re or re means? Do you have an idea of kind of what that means?
Yes.
So, what
Does it
is
mean like to give, to like re-give something?
Yep. Yeah. So, anytime you've come across a word that sounds kind of familiar, but you haven't really come across it before, sometimes you're able to piece together what it means based on the base of the word, any prefix or suffixes,
I,
I don't know, so you kind of just figured out what that word means by breaking it down.
yeah, I think it could be A or B, but not. I don't think it's C or D because
Why don't you think it's not C or D?
I don't remember in the text him talking about they should work for the land.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember that. But uh and also I couldn't really understand the text that well because the writing style, I guess. So
Yeah.
I would
Kind
say
of.
it's either A or B.
All right. So you've narrowed it down to A or B. That's good for test taking. That's kind of what you want to do. So now I would like you to decide on one. Whatever you were able to get from the passage, you've narrowed it down to A or B. So now I would like you to decide, is it A or B?
I think maybe B, but
I can't hear you too well. Say that again. I'm sorry.
I think maybe B. I would have to scan through the passage again. I
All
only read
right.
it
Yeah.
once.
Why do you think it's B? B is the correct answer.
Well, B
Can you
says
can you speak up a little bit? I can't really hear you. I'm sorry. Let me turn my volume.
computer has a bad little mic thing, but says wealth should be redistributed in a way that benefits the majority of society. And
Mm-hmm.
I scroll back up to the passage and I could see like in 15 in paragraph 15.
Paragraph 15.
Yeah,
Dean was saying your audio settings might be low. I don't know if you know to fix that or if you're able
I don't know
to.
how to fix that.
Huh?
I don't know how to fix that.
Oh, we could hear you fine just a moment ago. I don't know. You said line 15.
Yeah, I have to be like right close to my computer for it to pick
Oh,
up, I think. I'm trying to
okay.
read, but
I see. Yeah, you can't be that close and also read. I get what
I
you're saying.
remember in the text, what I can remember in the beginning, kinda, it was he told how he gave some, I think, money to a poor woman and she burst into tears.
Mm-hmm.
I can't find it in the passage where it says that, but that kind of, I guess, supports my answer for that
Mm-hmm.
because he gave money to her.
That's a good way to get, when I talk about tone or vibe or mood, those are like kind of the same way, the different words to say the same thing, express the same thing. That is kind of your answer choice B, it says wealth should be redistributed, and we figured out redistribute means to re-give out. So wealth should be redistributed in a way that benefits the majority of society. So the example you gave, it's not directly providing evidence for your answer choice B, which is the correct answer, but it's setting a kind of a mood or a vibe that supports answer choice B. So I
Yeah.
say it's not a direct answer because this is just one woman he's giving money to. So although he's, obviously more wealthy than this woman, he's redistributing his wealth to this older woman or poor, kind of poverty-stricken woman that he comes across. So that is an analogy for how he thinks that society at large should be. So that example gives you, it kind of sets the mood, because if the author is doing it, author being Jefferson, is doing that, he obviously thinks that that's how wealth should be. It should be redistributed, because that's what he did in his, during that day when he met that lady on the street. So that's a good example of kind of some indirect evidence. So I like that you weren't sure, and this is a good example, ML, of they're going to give you passages that are complicated, that are really dry and boring. And it's easy to become discouraged, especially if you see words you don't recognize. But you can figure out using, different methods and different ways, using what you do know. Pardon me, you can figure out the answer. So like you said that you kind of didn't understand everything in the text, and it was written several hundred years ago, so that's understandable, but you were still able to come to the right answer, to the correct answer. So I hope that is encouraging for you guys. But yeah, they are going to hit you with some dry history passage like this. All right, so good job. The next one, we have number 2. Scroll down to it. And we're speaking about how Jefferson uses the example of the woman he meets on the road in order to. So for number 2, can you please answer that? If you don't understand it, it's okay, we can work it out.
So first, I narrow it down between D and C.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say it's D, because I'm between those two, but I'm mostly inclined to D.
You said to D?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, can you work us through why that is?
Because in first A,
Mm-hmm.
is when we're reading a passage, I'm pretty sure the examples of the anecdotes that are presented are not just to distract the reader from the larger issue, but to contribute towards the issue. So I eliminated that one. Then for the illustrate his surroundings as a typical example of the native people, is it didn't seem as what he was really trying to say, because it didn't seem as the answer that would go with the anecdote. So I discarded that one. And for C, it's about the claim of the economic situation is worse than Madison thinks, is that he doesn't really mention anything about Madison, but instead Jefferson is telling Madison his own perspective of it. So I discarded C as well.
I think that was an excellent way that you got to the correct answer. The correct answer is D. Pardon me. allergies. Sorry. So I think how you described it was honestly pretty perfect. And how you, what's the word? How you crossed out or marked out or narrowed down your answer choices to C and D. A, it says, so we're questioning why he used a specific example that he used in his passage, which was the woman he meets on the road. So answer choice A says to provide a moving anecdote in order to distract his reader from larger issues. That doesn't seem to be Jefferson's intent. And it's also kind of like, why would an author of a passage or anything, why would they give you an example just to distract you from larger issues? So in a common sense way, that kind of doesn't make sense, but also in a more, in a way that is more directly related to the passage and what we read, we know that he's using that woman as a way to build his argument, which is typically what authors are going to do. Answer choice B says to illustrate his surroundings with an atypical example of the native people. If we don't know what atypical means, we can kind of start to figure it out, because typical means average, usual, normal. A lot of times when you add a in front of something, it means the opposite, which is just a very simple way of kind of making something the opposite. It's like opposite day, or like psych. Like, oh, I want something that's typical. Then you add an A to it. It's like kind of like psych. I guess that's like a simple way to describe that. But so illustrate his surroundings with an atypical or an unusual example of the native people. Well, the general feeling of the passage was not that she was unusual or atypical, to use their wording. The feeling was that she was kind of representative of people who are more poverty stricken. Let me see if I have a specific point. So we have direct evidence that goes against answer choice B right here on line 16, 17, line 17, where it says he was wishing to know the general condition of the laboring poor. So if he's wishing to know the general condition of the laboring poor, general means the typical condition. So what's the average condition? Then we can go down. Wishing to know the general condition of the laboring poor, I entered into conversation with her, which I began by inquiries for the path with which would lead me into the mountain, et cetera, et cetera. So, go back to that, whatever. So he's saying right there that he decided he wanted to know what the working poor class, how their lives were. So that's what he asked her. So that piece of evidence marks out answer choice B. Now, BR, I like how you crossed out answer choice C, because it's tempting to, oops, sorry about that. Here we go. It's tempting to choose that as an answer, because we know in the beginning of the passage, it said he's writing a letter to Madison. So what he has in the letter, we're assuming that Madison doesn't know, or else why would he be writing this? But the thing is, how you cross C out, BR, is exactly correct. We don't see Madison mentioned except for in the title, or in the description of what the passage is, the setup to the passage. So we don't know that we don't know what Madison thinks. We don't know what he knows. So he could know how dire the poverty-stricken or the laboring poor have it, or he could not. Pardon me, he could be in agreement with Jefferson and he could not, we don't know. So answer choice D is correct. Transition from his specific experience to a more general argument. And we also know this because, oops, These are overlapping. 1 second. So again, we're trying to figure out why does he use this example of the woman he comes across when he's walking. So this is the part where he's speaking about her. She told me she was a day laborer, et cetera, et cetera. So, boom, he tells us about his encounter with her, about his conversation with her. Okay, great. So now, what comes after that is that he starts to speak on, he says this little entrissement, which is French. It has a definition at the end. And it means emotion. All right. So this little emotion, with the solitude of my walk, led me into a train of reflections on that unequal division of property, ... So after he describes his conversation with this woman, he goes straight into, he's basically saying it made him reflect, and he started thinking about the unequal division of property. So D supports this, or rather, these lines are supported. What am I saying? These lines support answer choice D, because he transitioned from his specific experience, which is speaking to the woman, hearing how much she makes, how much her rent is, she doesn't have bread, he gives her money, that whole experience. That's a specific experience. Then he broadens it out as he's walking after he parts from her. He goes into a more, he reflects on more general issues that she kind of sparked, which is the idea of unequal division of property. So D is correct. Awesome job, VR, in narrowing the choices down. I think you did very well on that. Now we have number 4 we're going to go over. So number 4, of course. Number 4, DM, can you please answer that? Or wait, actually pause. Let me see. Actually, sorry, DM. MJ, are you ready to answer number 4? Because I know I have 4 questions, so I want to, there are 4 of you guys, so I want to split it up.
Yeah, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. Pardon me, let me mute myself because I'm coughing. Hold on. So you can go ahead. I'm just going to mute myself because I have to cough. So MJ, you can go ahead and mute yourself, or in the chat if you want. But tell us what you think number 4 is, and then we can work it out together.
I think it's A.
Okay, why do you think it's A?
Because he talks about how like the old lady, how we were talking about how she was living in bad conditions and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a very good that's a good guess. It's not quite the right answer, but it is. If you got this wrong on the test, I would totally understand. By the way, always try to answer everything. This is just a note. Try to answer everything, even if you run out of time and have to guess, because you get more points for the things that you get right. And I believe they don't take points off of what you get wrong. So did anyone get anything differently from A? You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself and say it. Got A? Yeah, A. A honestly seems like a very promising answer. C. ML, what did you get? Right. Yeah, it's hard. Right. All right, so this is a tricky one. I'm glad I chose this. So, someone said it might be C. So we've already explored, well, let's see, who else got A? Who hasn't spoken in a minute? I just asked MJ. Oh, DM, you haven't spoken for a second. Can you tell me why you think it is A? Or wait, what did you say again? Why did you, DM, why did you think it was A, and then why did you change it to C?
Well, I then remember. Well, the reason why I picked A was because it was like telling about a story he has witnessed, like something he has witnessed. But then I changed it to C once I was told that it was wrong, and because an anecdote means like a story about an incident or something. So then I was like, okay, maybe that's kind of going in detail about the things that happen in that village, and then the argument, like what's actually going on and what should happen, and all the that fall behind those next paragraphs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it seems like everyone kind of got it wrong, and that's good because that's a chance for us to explore like why it wasn't correct. So thank you, DM, by the way. And what you said made a lot of sense because it's like, okay, so let's look at what answer A says. It says provide a picturesque counterpoint to the terrible poverty that Jefferson witnesses. What does picturesque counterpoint mean? Right.
Like describing in so much detail that you can actually like imagine it.
Mm-hmm. And picturesque kind of has the word picturesque has a connotation of being like very pleasant. You say, oh, France this time of year is picturesque. It means it's kind of like it's so nice. It's like a picture. It's like a painted picture because those are things, pictures, those are pleasant things usually. Not always, but the general consensus is that they are pleasant. So if you guys remember when I had you read the first paragraph to get the general vibe or the mood, we could apply that general vibe or mood that we got from the first paragraph. The first paragraph is the paragraph that describes Fontainebleau. So if you were to apply that vibe you got from just reading the first paragraph, you might be able to, I remember I wrote down your responses. So BR, you said it was gloomy, kind of the impression you got from the first paragraph. DM, you said he was describing the village and what goes on. ML, you said he was just describing this area. So when we think about that, because that's really the only paragraph where that's really the only paragraph where Fontainebleau is mentioned and described in any kind of detail for the most part. When we think of it like that, and we get the general vibe of that, we know we can go ahead and cross out A because it's not, again, what you guys said, gloomy, just a description, it's kind of neutral. That's not, not quite. The correct answer is C. So the general vibe that you got when we first read the first paragraph, before we read the entire paragraph by ourselves, or entire passage, sorry, by ourselves, it doesn't really support A because picturesque is something that is very pleasant, very pretty to the eye. And when we first read that, before we read the rest of the passage, we didn't get the impression that Jefferson thought that Fontainebleau was picturesque. And BR, you said even that he kind of thought it was gloomy. You said you got a gloomy overtone to it. Pardon me. Because he was talking about he couldn't afford it. So that's kind of depressing. So all of those things go against answer choice A, basically. Now, for why C is correct, this is a tricky question though, I will say. So the question is, the main purpose of the passage's information about Fontainebleau is to, let's say, sorry, I realized I stopped sharing my screen. Sorry, I don't know when that happened, my bad. Okay, so let's say that, and this is a question I'm going to pose to you guys for you to answer, so you can unmute yourselves and just say the answer. Let's suppose, whatever you remember about the passage, let's say that we took out, because this is asking, what is the main purpose of the information about Fontainebleau? Let's say we took out the information about Fontainebleau. Let's say we took out the first paragraph. How do you think that would change the rest of the passage? So I'm just looking at other things.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Sure. If we were to take off the part of the passage that includes the description for Fontainebleau, or the information for Fontainebleau, the village, how do you think that would change the passage?
Oh, well, can I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, for me, I think if you're not gonna really specify on what you want the answers would be, then I think it would talk about like all of the worst experiences that he's shining light on, and like that woman and all the other incidents.
Mm-hmm.
Not really, it's not gonna like focus more on the village like itself. It's going to focus more in detail of what's going on.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that might be a confusing way to describe it, but once we kind of think of removing that information about Fontainebleau, we're left with, we're more, as DM said, we're more focused on the poverty aspect and the woman he's walking with and redistributing wealth. When we add it back in mentally, we see that it kind of just sets a backdrop to him meeting her and walking with her. Don't think it would change it much, ML. Yeah, it wouldn't change it much. It wouldn't. So the fact that it wouldn't change it much is a hint to that it is kind of just a little background information, a kind of setting up, kind of like if you put a banner in the background of your video or something, it's not the main focus, but it's kind of just in the background. It kind of adds to the context. So B is wrong because it says describe a foreign land as someone who has never visited France. Again, like we were kind of just saying that if you take away the information about Fontainebleau, it doesn't really take away anything from the passage. But also, it's just focused on Fontainebleau. It's not really talking that much about France overall. Yes, it is a side detail. Thank you. That's a good way to describe it. It's definitely a side detail. Or D, interest the reader in the narrative before changing topics. I don't see how that really interested anyone. Well, this passage is pretty boring, so nothing is really interesting about it. But it's not, again, this answer choice B can be answered by our our general vibe that we established when we read the first paragraph, sorry. It's not particularly, he doesn't write it in a particularly interesting way. He's not trying to entice us or make us think that it's this great area. It's just, he's just describing it. So he's describing it, he's giving it as a side detail, he's giving it as, pardon me, you could say he's giving context. So we go to answer choice C, which is the correct one, which is that he provides an information about Fontainebleau to contextualize the anecdote and argument that follow. So that's, the wording there is a little tricky too, because you might not be used to hearing the word anecdote. Anecdote is like a little, like in a personal story or something like that. To contextualize, sorry, the anecdote and argument that follow. So yes, he's giving some context to the story he told about the lady he came across and the subsequent argument that he made about redistributing wealth that followed that story that he told about the lady he met. If we didn't have the backdrop, or as ML said, the side detail of the village, we would just have this story of him just meeting a woman. We don't know where he met her. You know, we don't know even what kind of place that he met her in. And it would go into this argument. So it kind of fleshes the story out more and gives us more context. But this was a tricky one, I will say. So I had you looking at 7 as well. I'm just going to give you 7 myself. So 7 is, what main effect does the phrase flower of the country in lines 37 through 38 have on the tone of the passage? So here we are again looking at tone, vibe, mood, whatever word works for you, but those are essentially the same thing. So if it's referencing a specific line, always go to that line. Even if you think you know the answer, you can go to that line just to make sure. So we're looking at 37 and 38. So that's 35, 6, 7, 8. Doop, right there. I have a chat message. One of you is correct and the other is not. We shall see. First, I will ask you, do either of you want to give the reason why you thought it was the answer choice? Okay, no worries.
I will say mine, then it was B, because just for the first I base it on the overall purpose of the passage. It was to describe how there's hardship in in like majority of the population because they're only based on the rich. So that's one, I choose that one. And the other one because if you see flower of the country, it means like the importance of the country, like what is the core of it. So and it's based on a general, it's like it's a difficult way of me explaining it, but the main idea is that the flower of the country is like the majority of the population. So because the flower of the country is like important like object of the country. So and the whole passage is talking about how they're feeling hardships. So if you combine those together, it gets me to the answer.
That's really good. I will also ask you, how are flowers viewed? Would you say they're viewed negatively or positively?
I would say there be possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to add to what you're saying, everything you said is correct. And I think you said it very well. You incorporated the main idea of the passage. So again, even if you don't understand, not saying this is true for you, but just for everyone, if you don't understand every word or because they're using different money and it's from 1785, you can still read everything and get the main idea of the passage. So don't get hung up on a very difficult sentence or a word you don't know. Just keep going and you'll get the main idea. So you incorporated the main idea. And then the main idea was that Jefferson is he's kind of advocating, or he's speaking up for the laboring poor. That means the working poor, and saying to redistribute money. So when we add also that we know that flower of the country, BR, as you said, he's speaking about the majority, or as the answer choice says, the hardship of many. And this sentence, the flower of the country, that's saying, like we said, we know that flowers are seen as good. So the good of the country, the good majority of the country are, suffering. They need more money for bread. Right. Yeah, you guys are exactly right. They need more money for bread and stuff like that. So B is the correct answer. Very well explained by you guys. A is wrong. It lightens the tone by providing a metaphor of beauty in the otherwise bleak narrative. It doesn't lighten the tone. It's still fairly bleak. C, it creates a tone of praise by comparing the workers of France to those in the US. Yes, that's another good way. That's another good way to look at it. Sometimes in these writings, you can pull different things in different ways. That's a vague way of me saying what I mean to say, but yes, different countries, all countries have a flag, different countries and stuff have flowers or a national plant or something, and it's supposed to be unique to that area, unique to that country, and it's supposed to be like one of the things that the country holds dear. So C, it creates a tone of praise by comparing the workers of France to those in the US. They don't really mention, that doesn't mention a comparison at all. Or D, it creates an optimistic tone by showing that the people of France are variously employed. In terms of tone, because we're looking at tone, it does not create that tone because the tone is not optimistic. The tone surrounding the majority of people is positive because it's describing them as a flower. But the overall tone for describing what they have to go through is not optimistic. So that is why that is wrong. Because it's also saying here, the poor cannot find work. That is not optimistic at all. But let's focus more, even if we focus more closely around where the flower of the country is mentioned. Even leading up to this, as BR had said, the general tone, again, was that the wealth needs to be redistributed. It's not fair for the majority of people who are poor and working class. So saying flower does not erase all of that other stuff, basically. Okay. So Isaac. We're going to do, you're still muted. We're going to do a little outro and stop recording, but then we're going to do a bonus essay writing. We will take like 5-minute break. I have to go use the restroom myself. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to do that as well. The essay portion, this has gone longer than I meant to in the first place. So we'll do like 20 or 30 minutes But yes, Isaac, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, so again, thanks everyone for coming to this fourth session, right? Fifth.
Time flies.
It does. It's been, a good session. You guys are doing well and keep up the good work. For those who are taking the test next Saturday, if I don't see you between now and then, I'm sure you'll do well. You guys are putting in, a lot of time. And so hard work does pay off. I'm a strong believer in that. So good luck with your test next Saturday if I don't see you between now and then.